comes to Yuma, so the elves, or better known as the Fae folk, are generally known to be staples of Irish, British, and overall European folklore. But the Filipinos also have this as a subject. Ethereal blondes, generally very pretty ones. Think Legolas. These beings were mostly known as the Engkanto, but they also have many other names. So without further ado, let's look at some Filipino Engkantos, or Filipino elves. Number 1. The Akoy. These elves are said to be fair-haired and fair-skinned beings who appear as either young men or women. At approximately 20 years of age, they are oddly friendly, and despite their natural ethereal beauty, they dress as ordinary villagers and refuse to wear shoes. As expected, they live in the forest or on the edge of remote farms, far away from human villages or towns, and only come out at dusk or after dark, which makes their skin seem to glow in the moonlight. As previously mentioned, the Akoy are very friendly and like to visit lonely farmers' houses, bearing gifts of roots, herbs, and choppings of banana trunk, and sometimes rare fruits, as they like to also share their food. If their human friend is to get sick, they are excellent apothecaries, and if you lose something in the forest, they'll help you find it. But how does one make friends with these beings? Well, one account I found said that they appear on people's doorsteps in small groups, giggling and whistling to get people's attention, which is adorable. But unfortunately for all you Legolas fangirls who thought it might be nice to get a little bit of Asian in the mix, they absolutely refuse to lie with humans. A few old Visayan myths suggest that the Akoy often choose and train people to be shamans, hence the aforementioned gifts of roots and herbs and banana trunk. But do be warned, if you accept their gift of oil, your soul will not only be permanently bound to the lower world, but you will be expected to both be a shaman to men and spirits, which will most definitely end up with you being cursed. Or something much, much worse. And if you accept the gift and then decide later that it probably wasn't the best idea, then you will definitely be cursed, or die from a mysterious illness, as it's just considered plain rude. Number 2. Anani. Now, unlike the forest-dwelling Akoy, the Anani prefer to take up residence very close to humans, usually living in a tree outside a family's home. Much like Duende, these elves are quite short, and because they are more or less house spirits in a categorical sense that is, they can often be bumped into, kicked, or even stepped on, thanks to the fact that sometimes they're invisible. This greatly offends them, which is not something you want to do, as they can curse you with illness or even give you genital warts. And you can probably change that can into a definitely will, as these are vindictive little creatures. But luckily, they are quite easy to appease. Though their favourite food is a raw caribou's head, they'll also accept rice cakes, sugar, bibingka, basi wine, and cigars. So I must now wonder if the Capre and the Anani are like smoking buddies. Anyway, in earlier records of the Anani people practicing such offerings, they would traditionally offer them things like betel nuts, boar fats, and of course the caribou head. Number 3. The Engkanto and the Engkanta. Though Engkanto is a bit of a catch-all phrase for Filipino spirits, it can also be referring to a very specific kind of spirit. Like many Pinoy spirits, the Engkanto and the Engkanta have very fair complexions with fair blonde hair, but were also taller than many other beings. With the additional description of high-bridged noses, they kind of just sound like white people. Scandinavians if you want to be particular about it. But there is a way to tell if someone is a human or not, no matter what the color or spirit. In Filipino mythology, it is only humans and sometimes gods that possess the philtrum. The philtrum is that feline-esque dip between your nose and your upper lip that gives it the shape. Engkantos will lack this. The Engkanto and the Engkanta inhabit large old trees, their favorite of course being the balete tree. If you didn't already know, in Filipino mythology, balete trees are renowned to be prime real estate for spiritual creatures or simply having the ability to conduct large amounts of spiritual energy. Engkanto are said to live a lot like humans, in which the tree is their home and also houses all of their earthly belongings. In most instances, locals will know and warn others of where and in which tree Engkantos may live, and thus, if you want to clear any trees, you must first ask the Engkantos permission. This is simply done by setting up wooden stakes all around the area of which you want to clear. If none of these stakes are moved, the Engkanto approves. If even a single stake has been knocked over or tilted, then you have to redo the perimeter because you're encroaching on the Engkanto's property. And if you ignore this omen, then you will be cursed. Luckily, you can appease them by leaving a pig/boar, a brown hen, or a goat at the foot of their tree. Though I couldn't find whether these animals were supposed to be alive or dead. Unlike the Akoi, the Engkanto and Engkanta have no problem sleeping with humans. In fact, many legends suggest that they can only reproduce by sleeping with humans. And as they themselves are basically the most beautiful and/or handsome things to ever grace the middle realm, you don't have a problem choosing a mate. In fact, they often take their time doing so. This hunt for a mate starts with the stalking period, then watching a kind and beautiful human to see how many times they walk past their tree. If they like you, you should see them once or twice during this period. Then, when it's a full moon and they are ready to mate, the Engkanto or Engkanta release what is basically a pheromone that is said to smell of Malvarosa. But be warned, as these spirits are kind of a one-use only spirit, as once they have mated with a human, they return to their own realm, where they are said to be incredibly ugly. Much like European changelings, when their offspring is born to a human woman, they don't appear to grow and actually seem to die not long after birth. Some articles I read suggest that the baby turning blue is actually an indicator for their Engkanto father to come pick them up and take them back to their realm. In such cases, it's best to leave the now blue baby at the foot of the father's tree, hoping that he'll take it to his realm. In Ilocano folklore, they actually have a name, the Palasakan, where they are said to know everything about humans and serve as a good omen for hunters, fishers, and travelers. They also squeak and whistle to get people's attention. Number 4. The Lite Elves. Now, these elves are pranksters, in the oddest of ways. The story goes that at night, the Lelete elves go around and look for people who are sleeping next to each other house and flip one of them over so they're lying head to tail, potentially making it awkward when the two wake up. The weirdest part is, when I was researching this, the term used was bedfellows. How scandalous.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
The mischief also goes to fiddling with things inside people's houses, mostly causing music boxes and radios to play music on their own. But it is near impossible to catch them, as they are invisible and very sneaky. The only way you even know that they're there is when they whistle to themselves, a very happy and unmistakable tune. Number 5. Taha Maling. And finally, we get to break from the pale-skinned blonde trope. The Taha Maling are guardian spirits and protectors of animals who live in the mountain. She is kind of a lawful neutral, a sort of embodiment of nature, both being malevolent and benevolent towards humans. Much like when you want to go fishing but the creek runs through someone's property, the Taha Maling has no problem with hunting, so long as she's given rice cakes or betel nuts beforehand. It's a way of asking permission, and if you're lucky, she'll even bless your hunt, magically prompting a big fat boar or a deer to cross the hunter's path. The Taha Maling also have a male counterpart, the Maho Namai, who are classic pale-skinned blonde-haired elves. But they also have horns, which is optional, but they have horns, as well as very flashy long gold fingernail talons. Very glamorous. So, yeah. I love how similar Filipino elves are to Iris Fae, these hot, blonde, ethereal men and women who may or may not screw with you in many different ways. So, give the video a dislike, probably don't subscribe, that may result in some sort of brain hemorrhaging, and see ya!